So this evening has turned out to be a very meaningful and an important one, certainly for our family. And I'm honored to have my brother, Rabbi David Lapin, online with us. You'll hear in a moment why that's particularly significant. My cousins, the Lapin family, wonderful to have you here. My brother's grandchildren, Yosef and Eliyahu and Eli. My granddaughter, we've got Atara here. My daughter, we've got Bruya here. There's a family element to it. And the story is the shir was set up, as you know, a little bit late, and so apologies for the short notice, but we found a date, the shul was available, and we went ahead. And then I was contacted by a talmid of my brother, Reuven Pittenger, who had arranged quite separately. He likes to restore Sifrei Torah and give them to shuls. And he had restored a Sefer Torah, which he was giving to this shul. And he hadn't dedicated it to anybody, and he suddenly realized that around this time is the yortzeit of my brother's daughter, who passed away after battling with illness for some time, left a wonderful family. We have Eli here, her Bechor. The yortzeit is in a month's time, next Rosh Chodesh. And not only that, he realized that today was the last day that Eli was saying Kaddish for his mother. So he said, well, instead of giving the Sefer Torah next week or tomorrow or next month, let's do it tonight. So let's have the shir in the memory of Rina Esther Bas Daniel Ephraim and commemorate her life, because she was an alive person. And he thought, let's dedicate the Sefer Torah to her memory and let's bring it here tonight and give it to the shul. This is his shul. He's here in any event. So they're busy finishing off the Sefer Torah at Reb Reuven's house. If the ink is dry, they will bring the Sefer Torah before the shir is over, and we will possibly finish it off if it hasn't completely been finished, and put the Sefer Torah in the Aron. And so we dedicate tonight's shir, as well as the Sefer Torah, the Siyum Sefer Torah, to the memory and to the life of Rina Esther. As you'll see, the shir happens to be so meaningful. As often happens, these things work out that the shir could have been written for her, and we'll see very soon why. The title of the shir, as I think I explained to you last time, Reb Sholem usually designs the title, and when he designs the title, it's too far in advance for me to have any idea what I'm likely to be interested in speaking about. So then all I've got is a date and a title. And then I've got to make a shir around the date and the title. Sometimes it coincides, sometimes not so much. Tonight's title was Seeing the Sounds of Time. I think we did that in parallel. We kind of worked that title out together. But still, after we settled on it, I still didn't know what we were really going to say. Seeing the sounds of time sounds a bit of a paradox, doesn't it? Seeing the sounds of time, but as you're aware, that'll link into Matan Torah, into the Sinai experience. But before we get into the Sinai experience, let's deal with an important idea that emerges from Sfirat HaOmer. So we're going to deal briefly with Sfirat HaOmer. We're then going to apply that principle to Matan Torah, to the giving of the Torah on Sinai, and then apply that, as you'll see, to the life of Rina. The question we start with was actually a question that my wife asked me, and I get quite embarrassed when she asks me questions that I don't have answers to, and I kind of brush it aside and change the subject and hope it goes away, until I discovered that her question was the Maharal's question. The Maharal asks exactly the same question. The question was, the Torah says very explicitly, Tisperu 50 yom, you should count 50 days. We count 49. Why do we disobey the Torah? Why not count the night of Shavuot as well? Why do we stop before when the Torah specifically says 50 days? Tisperu, you shall count 50 days. And we don't. We count 49. And the Maharal says, V'zehu sod hakatuv gamken she'amar tisperu 50. This idea, which he develops a little earlier, talking about the fact that there's another similar case, not linked conceptually, but linked in style, which is the Torah says that if a person does, we've learned Masechet Makos, so we had a lot of it, if a person transgresses an Isur of the Torah, a prohibition of the Torah, alav, then he gets 39 lashes, but the Torah says 40. And we only give 39. So there's a whole discussion about that. And the Maharal's talking about that and then moves into the area of Sfira and says, V'lo hayta hasfira rak mem tet. We only count 49, even though the Torah says 50. Ki ha-chamishim hu ha-mashlim. Because 50 I'm going to just read and translate the Maharal. It's like a lot of Maharal, when you read and translate it, it's not really understandable until you unpack it a little bit more deeply. Because the 50 is the completion. V'hamashlim eino prati. And the completion is not a detail. Ve'ein bo sfira, and you can't count the completion. I don't know why not. So we can only talk about the detail of that which makes up the 50, but not the 50 itself. Don't worry if you don't understand it, nor do I. Whenever the Torah is talking about the integrated whole, it says count 50 days. And if you understand this, you'll understand that this is the original interpretation. And these are ways of wisdom and the secrets of the Torah, which are deeper than any ocean. Says the Maharal on this particular question that you ask. You see, you asked a question which has led the Maharal to say, this is the opening up of something which is deeper than any ocean. What does the Maharal mean? So I'm going to go a step further and we'll come back and then we'll understand the Maharal. The Avnei Nezer, who was the first Sochachova Rebbe, was Talmid of the Kotzker Rebbe. He wrote various Sforim. The Avnei Nezer is one important one. The Shalis and Shuvas of the Avnei Nezer. He wrote the Iglei Tal on Hilchos Shabbos. And they also found a lot of his notes that weren't published, and they only published them relatively recently in a sefer called Naot Deshe. It's a 3-volume sefer. The edition that I have was published about 40 years ago, and was given to me by a descendant of the Sochachova Rebbe. And I've never really looked at it before. And the other day, I literally just took it off the shelf and opened it up on Shavuot, and he says the following. He gives us a whole new idea of the passage of time. That time is not sequential. Time is cumulative. That means every day contains within it everything that came before it. So every day contains all of history until the present moment. Tomorrow starts a new day, but it's not a new day that isn't connected to the old day. The new day is connected to every day that ever was since the creation of the world. And when we move into a day, when we start to celebrate a day, to live a day, or a week, or a month, or a year, we're living layer upon layer upon layer of centuries and millennia of time, all packaged into that one day, or that 1 week, or that 1 hour, or that 1 second. Every second, and that's why we talk about a moment being an eternity. There is such richness in every moment of time. V'cheinu lashon hasfira, and that's how we count the sfira. Hayom hu kach v'kach yom. We don't say today is the 4th day of the sfira or the 10th day of the sfira. We say today is 10 days of sfira. Today is 11 days of sfira, 12 days. So it's adding up, it's building up. So when you come to 49, that's 49 days. It's not the 49th day. We don't count the 49th day, we count the accumulation of 49 days. V'chein Chag HaShavuot lo nikra Yom HaChamishim. And even Shavuot, says the Avnei Nezer, is not called the 50th day. Rak Chamishim Yom, it's called 50 days. Shavuot is 50 days of counting. Shavuot is 50 days of journeying. Shavuot is 50 days of growth, of personal development. That's what Shavuot is. It's all rolled into that last piece, and Shavuot brings it all together, and that is the time. Shekol yemei hasfira nichlalim b'yom hachamishim, because all the days of the Sfira are bundled together in the 50th day, which is Shavuot. And therefore you can understand, that you can begin to understand the Maharal. So when the Maharal says this is a very deep concept, what the Maharal is talking about is not just this is a deep concept of its own, but this is the whole concept of time. This is the way the Torah and Kabbalah understands the whole concept of time. The time is not sequential, it's cumulative. And this idea of the cumulativeness of time is the essence of how we work with the Sphira. And that's why we count 49 days, because once we've got all the 49 days, and however you want to think of the 49 days, in terms of what you accomplish in each of them, if you use the 7 Sphirot, or the 7 emotional Sphirot, and the 7 by 7, you've got your 49 days, and every day you're climbing a different level. However you want to experience your journey from Yetziat Mitzrayim to coming to Sinai, a journey where from Yetziat Mitzrayim we were passive. It all happened to us. And we come to Shavuot, and yes, the Torah was given to us, but we can't do anything with it unless we become active. So Pesach happens to us. Shavuot begins the process of we, as each Jewish individual and as the Jewish nation, acting on the world, using the Torah as our blueprint as to how to act on the world. But this is about us engaging with the world. The Torah is the way we engage with the world. When Pesach, we were passengers. We were taken along. We spoke last time about being at a great Pesach program where everything's taken care of. So that's how the first Pesach was. The Jews were forced out of Egypt. They were forced along. They were thrown out. They went. There were these amazing miracles. But what did we do for it? We did nothing. We weren't even deserving of it. Then we spent 49 days transferring ourselves, or transforming ourselves from people who are objects to people who are subjects. From people who are heftzes, if we use Torah terminology, we're objects. We're objects on which we are acted upon, to becoming subjects who act. We become actors instead of objects. And that's Shavuot. And that process of going from passive to active, from Heftzah to Gavra, that's the process of Sfirat HaOmer. And the 49 steps that takes are all wrapped together and packaged in Shavuos. Standing at the foot of Sinai, that's where that happens. And in Sinai, in the experience of Mount Sinai and the experience of Matan Torah, we have this complete, multifaceted experience of the 49 levels we've gone through in order to get there. So with the Avnei Nezer, we can understand what the Maharal means. And then one further thing is something that Rav Kook says in the Shmoneh Kvotzim, and I've quoted the Shmoneh Kvotzim to you before. These are his journals. So of all the things that we have of Rav Kook, the Shmoneh Kvotzim, they're called eight volumes of journals, are the only thing we've got from him that he himself wrote. Everything else was edited and reworked by his son and his talmidim. But the Shmoneh Kvotzim were just his own notes, which he didn't intend to publish. And it's very beautiful to read something written by somebody who didn't intend to publish. What you get like a peek into his life. You get a peek into his soul. You get a glimpse into who this person is. And he says the following, completely unrelated, that kol yom v'yom michayei ha'adam hu shakul be'erko haruchani mikol hayamim shekadmu lo beyachad. Every day of a person's life is more valuable than his entire life up till that time. The next day, tomorrow, is more important to you and I than our entire life up till that point. That's how important tomorrow is, or today for that matter. This applies not only with days, it applies with minutes, with seconds and microseconds. Every second, every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year is more valuable than all the hours or months or weeks or days or whatever it was that went before put together, because it contains all of that within it. And that's why our whole approach to old age is so different. That's why mipnei seva takum. An old person is there, you stand up. Just look at his 70. It's not just that he's 70, meaning he's just had his 70th birthday. It means he contains with him today, in this moment, 70 years of life. When you're speaking to him, you're speaking to 70 years of life. You're speaking to 70 years of wisdom, 70 years of experience. Doesn't matter what degree he's got or doesn't, or whether he's a Talmid Chacham or he's not a Talmid Chacham. One thing he has for sure is that accumulated experience. And that's why people take so lightly in the general world the idea of of euthanasia. So what? The person's suffering, so you put him out of his misery and he dies quietly and peacefully. Yeah, but even if he just had one more day to live, that day is worth more than his entire life. He can achieve more in that day than his entire life. That's yesh kono olamo b'sha'ah achat. That's why you can get your whole olam haba in one moment. Because the moment of the present isn't just the present. The moment of the present includes everything that's ever been. What a moment that is. And that's why we want to hold on to life till the last moment, because who knows what you can do with that last moment, even if, God forbid, one is ill and one is weak and one is old. But that moment is worth so much. It's worth a whole lifetime. Would you give away your whole lifetime? Would those who are in favor of euthanasia say, well, just kill them when they're babies and they don't have to go through the suffering of life and have to die at the end? In any case, nobody would say that. You're entitled to a life. Well, you're also entitled to that last moment, which is worth a life. It's such an unbelievable idea when you reflect over it over coming days, and you'll think how far-reaching this idea is. Because it's the nature of God's generosity that He just adds energy, adds light, just gets more and more and more. It's cumulative. It's not sequential. And every impression of your past lives in your present. There's nothing in your past that is lost. You might not be able to recall it that easily, but it's there. There's nothing, and it's in your subconscious, wherever you want to think that it is, but there's nothing that you've experienced since the moment you were born that isn't there in your life in the present moment. And then comes the chidush. Each day is everything you had plus a chidush. That's the gift, an innovation, a new insight, something you've never thought of before, something you've never seen before, something you've never felt before. You just see from Rav Kook how alive he is as a human being, how he lives his life. That every day is an accumulation of everything I've lived plus a chidush, a new way. That's what the new day brings. The new day brings a new way of seeing the world, a new way of experiencing life, a new way of understanding things. That's the nature of the Chidush. So here we have Rav Kook and the Sochachover Rebbe and the Maharal Miprag all along the same line of explaining the sequential nature of time. And that when we count Sphira, we're not counting a sequence of time units, a sequence of days. What we're counting is building up to an accumulation of 49 experiences, which then get packaged together, become Shavuot, plus the Chidush of Shavuot. So you walk into Shavuot with your 49 days, and now you find the Chidush. You learn Torah with a different perspective. You learn with all this 49 days, not just the 49 days, you learn with all of your life. But you bring the 49 days into Shavuot, and the way that you daven on Shavuot, and the way that you engage with friends and family on Shavuot, all those 49 days, plus the Chidush of Shavuot, Tafshin Pei, this Shavuot, which is different from any other Shavuot. Now this difference between a sequence in time and this integrated design, almost this unified whole, is also the difference that we're going to look at between sight and sound. In Matan Torah we're told, Vayihi vayom hashlishi biyot haboker, vayihi kolot uvrakim. There was lightning and sound, I suppose thunder. And it's interesting that when there's a storm, we have lightning and thunder, we have sight and we have sound, and we have different brachos for each of them. And what is the importance of sight and sound? So I want to talk to you about three important differences between sight and sound. The first is the one that I've mentioned before. I don't remember if in this forum or others. When you see something, you can only see the surface. You look at these tables; they've got blue tablecloths on them. You don't really know what's under it. Is it wood? Is it plastic? Is it metal? No, you're cheating. You're looking under the tablecloth. You can't know what's under it because all you can see is the veneer. All you can see is the surface. But what happens if I go, do I now know what's under it? Now I've got a good idea. This is not metal. It's probably not plastic. It's a good chance that that's wood. Sound comes from beneath the surface. The sound of a musical instrument comes from beneath the surface. What you see can only be superficial, can only be the surface. When you hear, you look at a person, you can just see the person, are they white, are they black, are they male, are they female? There was a time when you could tell that quite easily, and that's what you know. But do you know anything about their heart? Do you know anything about their thoughts and feelings? But they just have to open their mouth, and if you know how to listen, you can hear. They just have to start speaking. I was once working with a coach. It was a non-Jewish person. I never met him. We worked on the phone, and he was a very old man, very, very wise. And I remember one occasion, he picked up the phone, or I picked up the phone. I said, hello. He said, and he said, how are you? I said, fine, thanks. He said, you're not. I said, I am, and how would you know if I wasn't? He said, by the way you said, by the way you greeted. I could hear in your voice. And then he trained me in that. And people who are sensitive to that and understand, all you need is a word, just a hello. From a hello, you can already tell. So much you can tell from sound. So sound, when you're listening to sound, the sound comes from within something. Not only does this table tell me that it's probably made of wood, but if we knock two different tables that look the same, the sound will be a little different. Everything has its own sound. No two violins sound the same. No two guitars sound the same. Because the sound comes from the very essence of the material from which it's made. And our sound, when we speak, it comes from the very essence of the material from which we're made. So sound comes from the pnimiyut. You're able to hear the inside, the interior. You see the chitzoniyut, you see the exterior. But sound is obscure, open to interpretation, very nuanced. Sight is clear. You see what you see, you know what's there. There's no argument about that. So sight has a benefit in its clarity, and sound has a benefit in its depth. And sound is sequential. You don't hear all the sounds at one time. If somebody's speaking to you, you've got to hear one word at a time, one letter creating a word, the words creating sentences, the sentence creating paragraphs. That's how you read, that's how you converse. If you're listening to music, you're listening to it one note at a time, one bar at a time. You can't just hear it all at once. Whereas when you look at something, you can take it all in. And you can look at many different things. You can look at a massive landscape. And it's not sequential. You don't look first there, and then there, and then there, and then there. You just look at the whole thing, and you see a pattern. And you can get a sense of what it is. You can get a sense of the design. You can look at a skyscraper, and you can see the building. You can see the design. You don't have to go from floor to floor to floor. But when you're working with sound, it is sequential. So sound is sequential, and sight is design. You can see the design. Sight allows you to see design. From sound, you can't really tell the design unless you go through all the sequences. So when the Torah tells us after Aseret HaDibros, V'chol ha'am ro'im et ha'kolot, not only was there sight and sound, but they saw the sound. What does that mean? You saw the sound. So usually I explain that in terms of today. We understand that when they were able to create telephones, you were able to convert a sound wave into an electromagnetic wave. So it could be, and that's a sight wave rather than a sound wave. So they can be transferred one to the other. But there's a much deeper meaning to that. Ro'im et ha'kolot. Kol is sound. Sound is sequential. Sound is nuanced. Sound is deep. Sound is wonderful. Imagine you could hear God speaking. So all the benefits of sound you can hear. It comes from the pnimiyut. You're hearing from God's inside. It's from God's speaking from within himself. You can hear God's mood. You can hear if he's happy or sad or angry. You can hear it all from the sound. Imagine hearing God's actual words. But being able to see the sound, to be able to see the pattern with the same clarity that one sees sight. Imagine being able to listen and have the clarity of sight. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they saw with their eyes and they heard with their ears. Maybe it does mean that, but it doesn't matter. What's important is that they were able to hear the sound, the sequential, logical build-up of sound, to understand it, to give meaning to it. They were able to hear its depth, the depth from which it was coming. They could hear the interiority of the source of that sound. They could hear the Ribono Shel Olam himself roaring. and it was coming from inside him, and they could hear it. But they could also see where it fits in. They could see the whole system with absolute clarity. Imagine the Rebbeinu Shem was teaching them the whole Torah, and that takes a long time. If you do a daf a day, it's 7 years. A daf a day, you can't really absorb all that much. Daf yomi is really sight more than sound, isn't it? You see the daf. In an hour, what can you do? You see the daf. So you've seen the daf. If you want to hear the daf, you need a lot more than an hour to spend on the daf. People to spend the whole day on the daf, maybe, because there's just an enormous amount of volume there. But imagine if you could do both simultaneously. You could hear the Torah being taught, and you could see the integrated system and how it all works with one another. A little bit like I imagine the Rambam to have been. The Rambam is not just what the Rambam did that so many other people did, but the Rambam did something that nobody else did before, and I don't think anybody's done since. He displays the integrated system. One unique system where everything interlinks with one another in a perfect way, and yet it's sequential as well. So ro'im et hakolot, ro'im, says Rashi, et hanishma, they could see that which is heard, she'ef shal lirot b'makom acher, that doesn't apply anywhere else. But what exactly is the sound that they could see? Okay, so we now get it. There was some amazing experience that they could hear the depth of sound, the beauty of sound, the sequences of sound, the harmonies of sound, the tones of sound, the expressions of sound, the pauses in the sound. They could hear all of that and have the clarity of vision, see at one go, see where everything fits in. What did they actually hear? Says Rashi, et hakolot, the sounds. Which sounds? Hayotzin mi pi hagvura. The sounds that came out of Hashem's mouth, so to say. What came out of Hashem's mouth? Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim bibeit avadim lo yeh lecha elokim achirim al panai. That's what came out of his mouth. That's what they heard and saw in one go. With hearing that, they heard it come from Hashem's heart. They heard it come from Hashem's innermost place. They heard it come from Hashem's soul, so to say. And it penetrated their soul. If one person talking to another, we say, Dvarim hayotzim min halev nichnasim el halev. If you talk from your heart, it penetrates the heart of another. You can inspire another person if they can hear it coming from your heart. You can't inspire a person with a text message. You can't inspire a person with an email. You can't even inspire a person on Zoom. But if you really are talking to somebody from your heart and they're feeling it coming from your heart, you can inspire them. How much more so when it comes from the Rebbeinu Shalom, Hashem himself. We're hearing that sound coming from Hashem's mouth. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. The Rambam says in the beginning of Sefer HaMitzvot, HaMitzvah HaRishonah, what is the first mitzvah of the Torah? Hi hatzivui asher tzivanu laha'amin ha'elokut, to believe in godliness, v'hu shena'amin sheyeh shem ilah v'siba hu po'el l'chol hanimtzaot. V'hu omro yitbarach anochi Hashem Elokecha. The Rambam, in his first mitzvah in his Sefer HaMitzvahs, it doesn't mean that that was the first mitzvah in the Torah, it just means it's the foundational mitzvah, is to believe in Hashem. And that's what Anochi Hashem Elokecha means. But it doesn't just mean believing in Hashem. What does believing in Hashem mean? We've spoken in Matmonim recently about Hashgacha, that experiencing Hashgacha, experiencing God's guiding hands, is a form of believing in Hashem. But the Rambam defines it here, Shena'amim sheyeh shem ilah v'siba hu po'el l'chol hanimtzaot. It's about causality. What do you believe is the cause of what happens? That's where emunah plays in. So if I were to say to you, I'm sorry to hear you lost such a lot of money. Why? Say, okay, the market collapsed. That's not a Baal emunah. That's not somebody who's living emunah. That's not the reason you lost the money. The reason the market collapsed is so that you would lose the money. There's somebody else deciding that the market collapses. That's not the reason. Believing in Hashem means living where you see Hashem as the ultimate cause of whatever happens in your life. There's nothing that happens in your life or in the life of the universe that isn't directly caused by Hashem. That's emunah. That's Anochi Hashem Elokecha. That's what that means. You need to believe that I am the initiator of everything that happens in your life and in everybody else's life and in the world around you. And if you say to yourself, why are they not making more progress in Gaza? And you say, well, because President Trump has asked them to hold back a little bit. That's not a why. That's you explaining the hows of politics. That's not the why. Until we start answering the why question with a perspective that introduces God into the equation, we haven't started the process of fulfilling the first mitzvah of the 10 Commandments. The one that we just read every day and we skip over and we get Shavuot and we babble it off. But what does it mean to live it? To live it means that when anybody asks or you ask yourself why, the answer has a divine element to it. Simon Sinek wrote that book of It All Starts With Why. And I've said in conversations about that book, there's no point in starting with why if you don't believe in God. What is the why? There is no why. It's all, at the end of the day, it's all random. There's no answer to why. The only way to answer the why is with Anochi Hashem Elokecha. And Asher Hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim. You can see the way I took you out of Egypt to understand that I was the cause of that. You can explain it any way you want. You can explain it politically and socially. And you can explain Kriyas Yamsov scientifically. You can explain everything away. That's only explaining the mechanics. Why doesn't answer the mechanics. That's not what the why question is. Why answers the bigger meaning. And that needs there to be a God-centric perspective of the world. A world in which Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher Hotziticha me'eretz Mitzrayim is central. And one understands the causality of that. And there's nothing else but that. Lo yeh lecha Elokim achirim el panai. Don't answer the why question with any other answer. Because if you do, you've transgressed the second of the 10 Commandments. That's Elokim achirim. That's having another God. To answer anything that way. Really, do you remember once when I got a puncture with a rented car and you took it to get repaired by some garage mechanic near where you lived, and not even a religious guy, and you told him how upset I was that I rented this car and it got a puncture, and he said, tell your father to stop getting angry with the car and the rental company and look at himself. He didn't know me, stranger. That was one of my first introductions to Israel. Look at yourself, ask why. And don't answer the why with there was a nail in the car in the road. Don't answer the why with it was a bad car to start with. It was the car rental company's problem. Why? Look at your relationship to God. That's all that matters. In my relationship to Hashem, why did this happen? Because that's where you'll find the real answers of life. And that's what Anochi Hashem Elokecha means. And that's what Tzadik be'emunato yicheh means. The Gemara says at the end of Makos that Habakkuk came and reduced all the 613 mitzvot of the Torah to one, which is Tzadik be'emunato yicheh. It doesn't say Tzadik ma'amin, a Tzadik believes. A Tzadik lives by his emunato, lives by his belief. We each have our own emunah. Emunah is not a generic thing that you pick up at the supermarket. We each evolve our own emunah, what that means to us, how we relate to Hashem, how we see Hashem. But the tzaddik lives be'emunato yicheh. He lives inside his emunah. What does that mean? That means his emunah becomes his reality. It's not that you have a reality and there's a dimension of faith. There's a dimension of hashgacha. The reality is what you read in the newspapers. Reality is you got a puncture in the street. That's reality. And you couldn't get to your meeting on time. That's reality. Now the mechanic says, have a look at yourself. That's a bit of mussar. Very nice mussar. Good. Now let's get back to reality. No, this is reality. Tzadik be'emunota yicheh means a person lives in a reality defined by emunah. We spoke at the shir, I think it was Adar, maybe one of our Rosh Chodesh shirim, where I spoke about the Ein HaNeshama and Ein HaEmunah, the eye of the soul. That you don't only see through the eyes of the head and the face, the soul also has eyes, and Emunah has eyes. To be able to see the world through the eyes of Emunah. That's the reality. That's what reality means. That's what sight means. Sight defines reality. Sound doesn't. Sound is fantasy. You can listen to stories and you're into the world of fantasy. You can hear sounds and you think that there's a burglar on your roof, but it's really just something, a branch fell onto the roof. And you can make up a whole story that there's a thief on your roof about to break into your house. It's fantasy sound. If you get out and you go and have a look on the roof and you see there's a branch that fell, once you see, there's no fantasy. Fantasy is in sound, not in sight. And Tzadik be'emunato yichye means emunah is something you see, not something you hear. Emunah is something you live with visibly. It's around you. You're in it. Tzadik be'emunato yichye. He lives inside this universe of emunah. And he looks out at the world, which is all clothed and cloaked in his emunah. That's really what the emunah means. And then one can understand there's a medrash in Shir HaShirim, where the medrash says, Rabbi of Ohr Ra'anan, B'sha'ah she'sham'u Yisrael Anochi Hashem Elokecha, when the Jewish people heard Anochi Hashem Elokecha, that same verse we're talking about. Nitka Talmud Torah belibam v'hayu lemedim v'lo hayu meshachim. Torah became embedded into their heart and they never forgot what they learned. Just from the Anochi Hashem Elokecha, just from that one thing. You don't have to, you see, if you see the whole design, you don't have to go through the steps. You don't have to go through the sequences. If you're able to see the whole design at once, and they at Har Sinai were able to see the whole design of the universe and the Torah and how they interact with one another. And once they have that, you can't forget that, you can't unlearn that. Once you've understood the design of the universe based on the blueprint of the Torah, and it all fits together, and you see exactly how it all fits together, and it's the most beautiful work of art, and it's complex, and it's ingenious, and it's amazing. You understand how the atoms and the molecules work, you understand physics and science, and you understand the whole of Torah, you understand Halakha and Gemara and Kabbalah, you understand it all, you see it all. Do you forget after that? You don't forget after that. You forget details. You can't forget when you've seen an integrated whole, when you've understood the design. You don't forget a design. You forget the details that make up the design, but you don't forget the design. And so sight and sound and time are so connected. Time is made up of particles which then form a whole, and there is a design to the whole. And every day is a new design based on everything that came before it. And sound is cumulative and sound is sequential, but sight is not. Sight, you see the sound. And at Matan Torah, they were able to get both sight and sound. This idea of living be'emunato, living in emunah, there is a most beautiful piece of Chodesh Halvavos. The Chodesh Halvavos is, you go into bookshops now, and one of the biggest sections is self-help books. And the Chodesh Halvavos was one of the first self-help books. And there's never been written one to touch it, to come close to it. And it's sad that we don't spend more time working on it. Your people will go and they'll buy all these books and they'll watch these YouTube channels and how to get better at this and how to get better at that and how to be a better person and a better leader and a better father. And there's nothing, you won't learn anything that isn't there. And he writes in Sha'ar Cheshbon HaNefesh. And I'm going to work through the whole piece with you. והקהל יתברך יותר ראוי לו ויותר חובה עלינו להתקשט בעבודתו במצפונים ובעבודות ובאיברים. He talks about how we relate to VIPs and to powerful people, and he says, and with us, in our relationship to Hashem, it's more important to dress ourselves fashionably. And he's not talking about clothes. He's talking about thoughts, feelings, and actions. Because that's what Hashem is watching. So if you go to an important person, you go to the White House or to Buckingham Palace, you dress very well because they're looking at you. You're aware that you're being seen. Well, Hashem's looking at you too. But he's not looking at your clothes. He's looking at all the other stuff. So you should be as conscious about your thoughts, feelings, and actions in front of Hashem, which means 24/7, as you would be about your clothes if you were at a major event in Buckingham Palace. Lashkafato alehem v'rotot. Hashem sees that and looks all the time. Lo yatridenu davar midavar. Nothing distracts him from that. And then he brings various psukim and he says, V'chashe yiyeh ha'inyan hazeh shav el ra'ayon hama'amin tamid. And if you could get this idea into your mind permanently, that Hashem is with you, He's watching you, He can see what you're thinking, He can see what you're feeling, He can see what you're doing, He can hear what you're saying. He's with you all the time, watching you. If you can get that into your mind, v'yachshov ha'ma'amim tadir im nafsho alav, and think about it often and try and understand it, yiyeh haborei yitbarach nimtza imo b'matzpuno. This is a phrase in the Chodesh Alvavos. When I read this recently, I almost broke into tears just reading the beauty, the depth, and the profundity of it. If you can get that, if you can live in a way where you're conscious of Hashem watching you, Hashem will be with you in your consciousness at all times. You will have Hashem with you. God is with you. He's absolutely with you in your mind. That's where you find him. You're not going to see him sitting in the seat in front of you. You're not going to see him walking next to you. He's in your mind, but you can see that. Yir'ehu be'ein sichlo, you'll see him with the eye of your mind. Your mind has eyes. You can see. We're talking about sight and sound. And sight means it's a reality. It's your reality. It's not a fantasy. For most people, emunah is a fantasy. They believe. How do you believe? You believe. It's emunah. It's a fantasy. No, says the Chodesh Alvavos, this is not a fantasy. You can see this through the eye of your seichel as clearly as you can see it with your own eye. You see Hashem with you. You see it, just not with your physical eye. That's not the only way to see. You've got inner eyes as well. And Hashem will be watching you all the time and uplifting you. And you should be analyzing Hashem's ways. Look at what Hashem is doing. Thinking about Hashem's deeds. And analyze Hashem's activities in the world. Look how Hashem is running the world. Take an interest. Be curious. Things that show God's greatness, and his exaltedness, and his wisdom and his ability. Notice those things that intensify, that reinforce that feeling in you that Hashem is Kol Yachol. By looking, by noticing, by stopping, by asking the why question and answering the why question. And if you do this consistently, the Ribbono Shel Olam will remove all sadness from him. The sadness goes. All the stuff on how to deal with depression, again, I'm not talking about clinical depression, but emotional depression and sadness. All of it just goes. Because what's there to be sad about if you're with Hashem and you know that he wants you to be exactly where you are? He wants you to be doing exactly what you're doing. You're in partnership. He's there with you. And he will calm your heart from fear. No fear, because the Ribbono Shel Olam is with you. You feel he's there. If it's reality, if it's a fantasy, you carry on being scared. If it's a fantasy, you carry on being depressed and you believe. Are you depressed? Yes. Do you believe in God? Yes. How's that possible? Well, because my belief is a fantasy. But if I really believe in Hashem, it means that I see him through Ein Sichli, through the eye of my mind, I can see Hashem. Then that gets removed. Hashem removes that. V'yiftach lo sha'arei yediato. Hashem will open his wisdom, the man's wisdom. V'yigale lo sodot chochmato, and will reveal to him the secrets of his wisdom. Hashem will allow people to understand things. There's a beautiful Chassam Sofer where the Chassam Sofer writes that when a person grasps something, the understanding of something that is above his pay grade, by far, you know it's Ruach HaKodesh. And he says, even with non-Jews, even with Goyim, there can be Ruach HaKodesh. 5-year-old Mozart writing the symphonies that he did, that wasn't 5-year-old Mozart. That was coming from another place. And so many of us and many people have insight, some often and some occasionally, and you don't know where it came from. Where did I get that understanding from? That's the Ribbono Shel Olam is standing there, Yigale lo sodot chachmato, v'yasim einav al hadrachato v'hanagato, and Hashem will watch your going and coming and guide you. V'lo yanicheu la'atzmo liyachalto, and he won't leave you to your own devices. He won't leave you to your own devices. K'mo she'amar b'mizmor, Hashem ro'i lo echsar, and so forth. That's the famous Tehillim. Hashem, God is my shepherd, I will lack nothing. That's provided you live in a reality of emunah. V'yeh b'madriga ha'elyona mimadrigot ha'chasidim, you'll be one of the greatest, most pious people. U'v'ma'alah ha'rama mi'ma'alot ha'tzadikim, in the highest level of righteousness. V'yir'eh me'in ayin v'yishma b'bli ozen, you will see things without your eyes. You will hear things without your ears. Your soul starts becoming functioning. Your soul starts seeing, your soul starts hearing. And now you can see and hear things that are far away. You're not limited by distance. You're able to see and hear things that are beyond you. V'yedaber bli lashon. And you can speak without using your tongue. Just your thoughts can impact people. Just your ideas can impact people. V'yargish b'inyanim bilti chushim. And you'll feel things that you're not feeling sensually, you're feeling them intuitively. V'yishaer b'hem ibaladei hakasha v'lo yehav davar zulat davar. And so he goes on. And this is the kind of person that Habakkuk is describing when he reduces the entire Torah, all 613 mitzvot, to tzaddik be'emunato yichyeh. A tzaddik lives inside his emunah, meaning his emunah, his belief, is not a fantasy, it is a reality. It's not just sound, it's not something he heard about, it's not something he read about, it's not something he learnt about. It's something he sees with absolute clarity, whether with his physical eye or with ein sichlo, as the Chodesh Halvav says. If you have never met somebody who lives that reality, then you're at a disadvantage. I certainly have had the privilege of knowing people who live this way, and some of you have as well. And it's an enormous advantage to see it in action, to see people who live that way. I used to say when somebody asked me about the wonderful times I used to spend with Rav Meir Soloveitchik, the Briskerov's son, and I would always visit him whenever I came to visit Eretz Yisrael. For 20 years, I would always visit him. And sometimes the visits were a little awkward because sometimes we would sit in silence for almost the whole time. The visits would be at least an hour. And even when we talked, the talking was probably 10 minutes of the hour. And the rest of the time was just sitting still. And somebody was asking me once, what do you get out of that? I can understand. You ask him something and the answer is a brilliant answer, but what do you get out of the sitting there? And I always said, I've never seen Hashem. But to be in the presence of somebody that is seeing him. To sit there and you can see on his face, he sees God. Right in front of him. And you're in his presence and you can see that. To be in the presence of that kind of thing. Your grandfather, my great uncle, that you felt in every minute with Rabbi Lapin that you're with him, you realize you can't see what he's seeing. But you know that what he's seeing is amazing. And you're part of it because you're there. But you know that you can't see what he's seeing. And that's what the Chodesh Halvav is talking about. But it's not just great tzaddikim and old people who've been around for a long time. Sometimes very young people have this too. And I would suggest that Eli, your mother, Rina, lived this piece of Chodesh Halvav. For her, emunah was reality. It wasn't fantasy. She operated that way. She lived that way. She made decisions that way. She made decisions that nobody else would make. She made decisions that people mocked her about. It just didn't matter because she lived in a reality that was absolutely clear to her. She could see it, and she lived with joy and with happiness and with vigor and with vibrancy and with humor and with love in this reality. And again, we who knew her knew that we couldn't see what she was seeing. That you were in the presence of somebody who was seeing a reality that we maybe were unable to see. And when we have the privilege and the honor of being able to be in somebody's presence who lives this piece of Chodesh Halvav, a person who is tzaddik be'emunato yichyeh, a person who lives within the reality of his emunah, a person who understands that Anochi Hashem Elokecha is not a statement of fact. Anochi Hashem Elokecha is not something to hear. Anochi Hashem Elokecha is something to see. It's ro'im et hakolot. What kolot? Says Rashi, hayotzim mipi hagvura. You've got to see Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Where do you see it? Everywhere. That's the capacity, to be able to look at it and see the entire world as the different facets of Anochi Hashem Elokecha. And to be able to understand that is the ultimate that comes together. And when we do come to Shavuot, yes, we're building up step by step, and yes, the Torah is made of all sorts of little pieces, but at the end of the day, it all comes together into tzaddik be'emunato yichyeh. It all comes together into Anochi Hashem Elokecha. And that's the Chamishim, that's the 50th day. And you don't denigrate that wholeness by breaking it up into parts. You don't break it up into parts and miss the wholeness. That's why we don't count the 50th day. There's some things you don't count. They're just too big. They're just too magnificent to reduce to anything quantitative. Yes, the steps to get there are quantitative. The facets are quantitative. The molecules and atoms from which it is made are quantitative. You can count those things. But you can't count the accumulated effect of the whole. The whole is a oneness, it's a wholeness, and we don't break it up into pieces and count the pieces. And that's why we count 49 days and not the 50th day. That's why Shavuos is the 50th day. And it's our hope that as we go into Shavuot, if we can just take this one shir with us into Shavuot and try and live Shavuot this way and come out of Shavuot with this in our hearts and be able to live a little more in this reality, not with emunah as a fantasy, not with emunah as a story, not with emunah as something we've picked up in books or been told by our parents or grandparents, but something that is a living reality. It's the way we see the world, it's the way we understand the world, and it's the way we live our lives. So thank you for joining me, and thanks to the family for the opportunity to link this together to the end of the 11 months, and the Yortzeit will be in a month's time, how much we miss Rina, and yet there's something of her that is with us. That Ein HaSeichel, that eye that the Chodesh Halvova says that you don't need an eye for. The ability to speak and you don't need a mouth for it. To hear and you don't need ears. I found that my time with Rina was very limited. How much time did I have with her? But so impactful that even now I can hear her voice. That even now I can see her and feel her. And that's how it is when great people leave the world. They don't leave. All they leave is the ability or the need to relate to them through our physical senses. But the ability to relate to them through the Ein HaSeichel and the Ein HaEmunah, that remains something that stays with us. And the more we get schooled and skilled at the ability to do that, to see, feel, hear, without the physical organs, but to be able to use our souls, our intuitive ability to be able to hear directly into our souls, the better we prepare ourselves to be able to relate to Hashem Himself, who we relate to without any physical part intervening between ourselves and Him. So a very good Chodesh to you firstly, a good Chodesh Sivan, a very good Shavuos to you all, and in Mitzvah Hashem we will meet again and take our learning further. Thank you.